You're connected to Business Wrap. Find us online at businesswrap.biz, on Twitter using handle AskBizWrap, and on Facebook just search Business Wrap. And now, Be Insured with Luke Mardigian, presented by Farm Bureau Insurance.
Hello, and thank you for listening. My name is Luke Mardigian, and you are listening to Be Insured, a show where we discuss a variety of topics related to insurance, business, leadership, so you can stay protected and make sure that while you're paying your insurance rates, you actually are insured. One of the most common questions I get, which is our topic for today for my clients, is why did my rate go up? That is the most common question we get on a weekly basis. And sometimes it's significant, sometimes it's not. And we're going to talk about that today because there are many factors at play when it comes to auto insurance rates. Today in the audience, we're going to be specifically talking about Michigan issues, but this is a nationwide issue, and I have some statistics from the Insurance Services, ISO, who puts those things out. But before I do, I want to introduce my special guests.
Roger Graff, Farm Bureau Insurance, Vice President of Claims.
Justin Maxim with Chase Bylenga Hulse Law Firm in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Thank you both so much for being here. I know you have a busy schedule and you both are doing some great things, but we want to dig in today. All right, statistics. According to ISO, which is kind of the industry standard, claim frequency from 2008 to 2017 has gone up a little over 20%. Claim severity has gone from $14,000 per claim to over $15,000 per claim. And for property damage, it's gone from 3.42 to 4. Now, this is claims frequency per 100 cars. And so what you're seeing is this marked increase in property damage. It's gone from $2,900 a year to $3,600 a year. So that's a $700 increase in 7 years per claim. And so in claims, we talk about claims frequency and claim severity. Now, Roger, what are we seeing from a claims standpoint when it comes to frequency?
Well, you hit it on the head. There is an increase in the frequency, and it's we look at it if we're looking at auto. Auto is when people think about insurance and about their rates going up, it's usually the auto part of it. Yeah,
it's their biggest bill.
And auto is broken down. It's broken down into several different sections, and it's as you mentioned the PD or the property damage, but there's medical in there. There's what's called personal injury protection. There's PIP, and then there's bodily injury. There's BI as well. And what we're seeing is the major increase is in the medical aspect of it.
So that's really the severity portion, just the average cost per medical claim. So for our listeners, the scenario would be where these would come in is you're driving down the road and you're in an accident, a collision of some type, and either you are injured or someone else is injured. That's when these coverages come in place. In Michigan, your medical coverage is for you. It comes from your policy for the most part. There's some kind of fancy stuff once you get into households, and we're not going to get into that today. And then on the liability side, you hurt somebody, you cause damage to them, to their person, and you're liable for it potentially.
Absolutely. We have what we call thresholds in terms of injuries. They have to be a serious injury, and that's the bodily injury. The property, just to make sure everybody understands. The damage to the vehicle, that's, the most that can ever come out of that is $1,000.
Yeah, mini tort. Yep.
That's it. But it's what's interesting about the personal injury protection, you're absolutely right. It is personal. So if, Luke, you and I are in my car and we're involved in an accident, regardless of fault, it doesn't matter if I'm at fault or the other vehicle. If we're both injured and you have a personal auto policy, obviously that's where your claim is going to go. And that becomes confusing because you're thinking, wait a minute, it's somebody that whoever caused that injury is going to pay for my medical. That's not how it goes. It goes right back to your policy. And then my policy would trigger as well for my injuries.
Yeah, I see that a lot. My clients usually come to me saying, why am I the one who's responsible for my car's damage, or, the other person caused this. Why is this going on my policy? And that's just the way the Michigan no-fault system generally is you're essentially covering yourself. And that's why it is important to know your insurance, have a good agent, because you do cover yourself a lot in Michigan. Like you said, the PIP benefits you get, your medical bills are paid through your own policy. And a lot of people don't understand that as well. That's
even if you're a passenger in somebody else's car,
Yep.
it's still going to go to your policy.
Correct. And that's an automatic coverage here in Michigan. You have to have that coverage for your insurance. So your medical bills are going to be taken care of, but the property damage, that sort of stuff, your underinsured, uninsured coverage, that comes through your own policy. And it's important to know what that means here in Michigan.
Right, and I mean the basic of no fault. It's the three coverages are the property damage, the bodily injury, and the medical. And then everything else is an option. Which uninsured motorist, it shouldn't be an option. I mean, everybody should, because 19% of nationally 19% of people don't have insurance, and even in certain parts of Michigan it's even higher than that. So is very important.
And I've seen that a lot lately as well. With the cost of insurance going up, a lot of people are saying I can't afford it, and they're choosing not to have insurance and they're driving, which is the worst thing you can do here in Michigan.
Yeah.
But a lot of my clients have to then go back on their underinsured, uninsured coverage, which it's important to have and to know what that means and make sure you're covering yourself.
And Justin, you bring up a great point about the penalty for not having insurance, because under Michigan no fault, you're protected. I mean, it's no fault. But yet, if you don't have insurance, what happens is that opens up the door. Now, all the medical expenses of that other party and all the damages to their car, that's all wide open. Now you're responsible for it. Whereas if you had insurance, you'd be protected from most of that.
Right. You're protected to the extent you're in the system. If you're excluded from the system, things are not good for you. So that's where it's important to make sure you're covered.
And that's actually a major factor in why rates have been going up nationally is the 20-ish% that are uninsured, because the way insurance works is the more people who pay in, the lower the rate is. So particularly in Michigan and most states in America have mandatory auto insurance coverage. You're required by law. You don't have a choice. If you own a car, it's your duty to insure it. Well, the 20% who choose not to, for a variety of reasons, actually make everybody else pay a little more for their insurance. It's actually called the law of large numbers, to make me sound really smart.
That's very true, and you're right. And when it comes to states, because insurance is, it's state regulated. It's not federally, it's state. So each state has their own different limits. The basic coverages are there, but then the limits are totally different.
Yeah, we were talking about how in Florida it's like $15,000 or $20,000. So you get in a car accident, you break your neck. Here's a check for $15,000, $20,000, and the insurance company say, "Hey, good luck." And then of course, then there's an increased cost on the liability side, and there's all types of things that come out of that. But it's really interesting. So on my end as a consumer, I look at things at Michigan no fault as a really big advantage to me. Because I know that if I pay my insurance bill, I'm going to have coverage.
Yeah, that is a good point. I always say, for how expensive it is and how much people complain about the costs, if you're involved in an auto accident, you will be fortunate and happy that you paid those premiums because you're covered for your lifetime, and there is no cap on your medical. To the extent it's reasonable and necessary, the insurance company is going to cover it.
Yeah. And that's a great point, Justin, that, the way Michigan insurance, because there's been numbers where there's been numbers where the
technical difficulties here in the studio. All types of fun.
There we go. Okay, so getting back to the numbers.
So with Michigan PIP, if you're your own coverage, you're going to your own coverage and paying for your insurance.
Absolutely. When it becomes, it's unlimited medical. So here's where I was going. The numbers we've seen is that, arguably Michigan could have the highest premium in the entire country. Out of all 50 states, there could be a possibility that Michigan has the highest premium average. Well, there's a reason for that, because the insurance coverage that's afforded in Michigan is by far the best that's available.
Yep.
The next highest, as Justin mentioned, unlimited medical. Well, this is where we get into cost, because we have unlimited medical. The next state in line is $250,000, and it's New Jersey. So there's a huge spread there, and we're the only state in the country that has that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We're really not looking at apples to apples when we're comparing with other states. It's the cost is different, but the actual coverage is much different as well. And in Michigan, like I said, if you're involved in an auto accident, I've seen many clients who are, you'd be fortunate to have that coverage because, like you said, you can't get through the emergency department without spending $10,000 to $15,000. So,
Yep, absolutely. And that actually brings up a great point, that one of the reasons why Michigan is, so statistically, we're fourth most expensive in the nation, according to ISO. But it's New York and New Jersey and California who are the three states ahead of us. So those are, population-wise, I mean, just massive compared to little old Michigan here. But one of the reasons why our costs are higher is because we pay unlimited. So, we're, as an insurance company, we're liable up to a certain point, and then the state kind of takes in with the pool that everybody throws money into, called the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association. MCCA is probably what it is on most of our listeners' declaration pages, and the state's raised that a few times over the past few years. Am I right?
Yeah, and just recently, I mean, they raised it $28, and that triggered the governor. When that came out, within 60 minutes, the governor ordered an audit on MCCA because, everybody, myself as a consumer and Luke and Justin here, we look at our premiums, and when they keep going up, it's just a question of why is this? And the MCCA, this year it's capped at $550,000. So each carrier is responsible for $550,000 in medical. Okay. And then when it goes beyond that, then what it is that, everybody shares in that risk, that goes above it. And you look at it right now, ton of money in it, lots and lots of money, but it's because it's for lifetime. It's for people that are injured that, unfortunately are going to need that, the rest of their lives. So when you look at this big chunk, well, it's spread over a lifetime. It isn't spread over 1 year. And I think that's where confusion lies.
Yeah, I actually had a client who called me and said, "Luke, why is my rate going up? It feels like it's going up every 6 months," is what he said. And I know our filings as a company, so I know that we haven't raised our rates that much. So I dug into it, and 75% of the increase that he had was due to the MCCA assessment that went up. And it's just $28 per car is what that cost is. So if you have 6 cars, that's a lot of money.
And it's not, the audit would perhaps to see if, funds are mismanaged and that. But we know from an insurance industry that, investments have not done as well as they could in the past. And, that always triggers, when you're counting on something on an investment, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, essentially that's what insurance companies, how they make profit, right? For the most part, most companies, every dollar they bring in, they're paying out in claims. And that includes the cost of, participating in the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association. So without investments, including the state, we're not going to have that surplus of money to pay these claims. So thankfully, the economy's bouncing back and interest rates are rising, good and bad.
Oh yeah, no, it's much better.
Yeah,
it's better.
So on the liability side, we know we have unlimited medical. Are we seeing an increase in medical, and is that impacting medical costs, and is that impacting our liability, the amount that companies are paying on liability?
In Michigan, they don't go as hand in hand as like other states. Because your medical is covered by your PIP benefits or your first party coverage, the third party coverage for liability, which is what I represent a lot of clients on, essentially going after the party who caused this, and am I entitled to anything else outside my no-fault benefits? That is not an included damage, essentially, in your third-party claim. Essentially, you're just going after your pain and suffering, your non-economic damages, how this has affected your life, and that's got nothing to do with how much has been paid out in medical. Now, the insurance companies sometimes gauge, well, your medical essentially gives you a picture of how badly you've been hurt. If your medical is only $5,000, you may not be as injured as somebody with $500,000 if you're in a catastrophic fund claim. So to some extent, it's got a bit of a gauge, but it really doesn't impact as direct as you may think.
That's interesting. And I know other states, they'll use guidelines like 3 to 5 times medical cost is what the a liability lawsuit
if you
settles
use that with the insurance companies in Michigan, they know you don't know what you're doing. So you really got to. It's not about your medical.
And that goes like pre-no fault from before 1973. That kind of concept, because that's what it is in terms of the medical. And the one thing about the medical is, as Justin pointed out, that if you try a case, the jury doesn't see that on a third-party case. The jury doesn't see that, $50,000 or $100,000 was paid out, or because it's taken care of. So that party, there's no need for them to collect more. Because it's already taken care of. But where it gets into is, as Justin points out, the pain and suffering. That's where it's at. And then also from an economic standpoint, we get into wages, and what happens with personal injury protection is you have 3 years of wages and you're capped at a certain amount a month. So if you're injured for life, you're only going to get paid under your personal injury protection for 3 years. So that excess wage loss, then that does become part of your claim.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think that overall the increase is because of all these things. I know we didn't have pain and suffering as part of our liability claims just 10, 15 years ago, and now we do. So we're paying for more things, we're paying more often, and overall that's exactly why auto insurance costs are rising all across the country. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to sharing with you how you can be insured.